is Suzette. I'm going to continue with the report. I will give you an overview on the authentication process as well as the related questions in relation to such.
Document authentication. Authentication is a generic term that commonly refers to the process of verifying the origin of a public document by certifying the authenticity of the signature and legal authority of the public official who signed it. It does not, however, certify the content of the public document to which it relates. Now, what is the purpose of document authentication? The purpose of document authentication is to certify. So as mentioned earlier, it certifies the validity of the signature on a legal document, the authority of the signature on a document, and identify the stamp or seal on said document. Who benefits from authentication? Anyone traveling or moving to another country. Examples may be individuals or families relocating due to a job, corporations opening new branches or offices in other countries, teachers who will be teaching in foreign countries, and individuals who need to present issued documents to government authorities in another country. These are just some of the examples of those people who will be benefited from authentication. Now, what are the types of documents that can be authenticated? The types of documents that need certification will vary depending upon the embassy requirements of the host country. Common examples of documents that require authentication or apostille include birth, marriage and divorce certificates, background checks, educational documents, incorporation or operational documents for corporations, personal or corporate legal documents. Why do some documents need an apostille certification and others need authentication? A document may require an apostille or authentication certification depending on the country in which it needs to be submitted. Most countries in the world are divided into two categories. First, countries which are signatories to the Hague Convention will require the apostille seal, which this will be discussed in detail by our next reporter. Also, countries which are not part of the Hague Convention require documents to follow the authentication process. Now let's discuss the authentication process. Now we need to ask first this question. Is country where document will be used is part of Hague Convention? If our answer is yes, then we'll be needing the apostille certification. But if our answer is no, then let's proceed to the authentication process. In those cases where apostille is not an option, business documents must be authenticated. So authentication usually begins with the relevant party signing a document and having it notarized. Then, the county or state officials will examine the notary acknowledgement. So, for example, in the US, the US Department of State will certify the said document. Once a document is authenticated, it must be certified by the foreign jurisdiction to be valid there. And this process is called the legalization. Usually, it occurs at the country's embassy or consulate and can be considered the final step in the authentication process. Before you submit documents for authentication and legalization, we need to get familiar with the jurisdiction requirements. We need to keep in mind that each embassy or consulate has its own rules and hours of operation, and most require certification requests to be accompanied by specific documentation. Civic and religious observances can affect transaction handling speed. Each country also has its own standards of proof. Legalization and authentication process can be very time-consuming. In order for us to increase the chance of success, we need to be sure to do the following. We need to know what are the fees that are involved. We need to know what are the forms of payments that the said office accept. Will courier services be required? At what cost? What are the expected turnaround times? We need to have the right information. Now let's proceed to these frequently asked questions in order for us to really understand what is uh, authentication is all about and the other related issues concerning the authentication process. First question: what will I do if the country where I need to use my public document is not an apostille country? If your public document is to be used in a country where the apostille convention does not apply, then you should contact the embassy or the consulate of the country where you intend to use the document in order to find out what your options are. This usually means that you need to present your documents to the said country's embassy or consulate in the Philippines for its authentication or legalization. You may also ask the intended recipient of your document whether an apostille is necessary in your particular case. What if my document was issued from another country and will be used in the Philippines? Documents originating from another country are considered as foreign documents. There are two types of foreign documents. First, a certificate of authentication, certificate of acknowledgement, jurat, and other documents issued by Philippine embassies or consulates, and documents issued by foreign embassies or consulates in the Philippines. Foreign documents cannot undergo authentication since this process is only applicable to Philippine public documents for use abroad. If foreign documents will only be submitted to local offices in the Philippines, documents shall be submitted at the DFA Asiana for certification. If the foreign document is apostillized by another country, then it shall be submitted directly to the local office without the need to further authentication or certification by the DFA or Philippine embassies or consulates. What if my document was issued from another country and will be used to another country? We need to coordinate with the concerned foreign embassy or the consulate, since the Philippines is not the issuing authority nor the recipient of the said document. The DFA apostille or certification is not applicable. Now let's proceed. What is a consularized SPA? A consularized SPA is simply a special power of authority which will be signed abroad. The consularized SPA is for OFWs who wish to assign a representative back in the Philippines but is unable to come home due to various reasons. The consularized SPA will be executed at the Philippine Embassy of the country where the said OFW is currently residing. A consularized SPA can be used to assign someone to fulfill legal transactions on his or her behalf. Now, what are the requirements to get a consularized SPA? To get a consularized SPA, the following requirements must be supplied. First, a photocopy of the first and last page of your Philippine passport. Valid Philippine issued government ID only if the passport is not available, although some may require both the ID and the passport. Next is personal appearance. This is very important. And two witnesses, and this should be of legal age and also personally appear with you in the embassy during the execution of the said SPA. Valid IDs of the witnesses and notarial fee, and said this will vary per country. Next, how to get a consularized SPA. First, you need to visit the nearest embassy's website and go to the Consular Services section and download the Special Power of Authority form and fill out the details. Together with your two witnesses, then you need to go to the Philippine Embassy near you. Then present the duly filled out SPA and sign the document at the embassy. If everything goes well and there are no issues or missing documents, then you'll be asked to pay the consularization fee plus an additional fee for the courier services. And it usually takes around 3 business days in average to process the document. So once a document has been released, then you can send it back to your family in the Philippines and use it for its intended purpose. Do I still need to secure a consularized SPA if I already executed a special power of attorney while I was still in the Philippines? Generally, the old SPA with no expiration date is still valid, provided that the modes of extinguishing the agency are not present. However, in actual practice, the latest SPA is required to ensure that the agent still has the mandate and the information of the buyer is still current. For example, the civil status has changed from being single to married. Buying and selling real property through an agent is a risky transaction, so hence the parties are required to conduct due diligence. Requiring the latest SPA is part of the due diligence. How can I verify the validity or authenticity of a special power of attorney? You may verify the validity or authenticity of the SPA by checking with the notary public who notarized the document. So before notarizing the SPA, the notary public has ascertained that the owner or the principal personally appeared before him and presented the SPA for notarization. And also the person who signed the document is indeed the owner through the showing of competent evidence of identity such as those IDs that are required. And the principal voluntarily affixed his signature to the document. Notary publics are required to keep and maintain a notarial register, so they are also mandated to furnish a copy of all documents acknowledged before him to the clerk of court. The special power of attorney was authenticated with a red ribbon. Is it still valid or do I need to have it apostillized? Documents with red ribbon are still valid and you may still use the same, provided that the subject document and the red ribbon are still within their validity period. The issuing of the apostille certificate did not invalidate the previous process of authenticating a document by affixing a red satin ribbon. It only replaces it. Hence, there is no need to have the SP apostillized again as it will be redundant. I'm executing a special power of attorney abroad for my representative in the Philippines. Do I need to send the original SPA to my representatives or will a digital copy sent via fax or email will suffice? It depends on the entity requiring the SPA, but best to check with the entity requiring the SPA if it allows a digital copy. Generally, the entity will require an original copy of the SPA to validate the authenticity of the document and, of course, the signatories. This is most critical in transactions involving the transfer of rights, such as the to sell real properties.
Thank you so much
That
for
would be
listening.
all. Thank you so much.